My name is Emily. I am 29 years old, and a few weeks ago my dad sold the house I inherited so my little sister could drink overpriced cocktails on a beach and shop for a cute little car. And he honestly thought I was just going to swallow it, because family comes first as long as family means her, not me, which I found out the hard way when I pulled into the driveway of the only place that had ever really felt like home and saw two cars I did not recognize, crammed up by the garage, doors open, strangers carrying boxes through the front door like they owned it. I killed the engine and walked straight up, still in my scrubs from an overnight shift, heart pounding more from anger than from fatigue. And I rang the bell. A middle-aged guy opened and gave me that annoyed, "What do you want?" look until I said, "This is my house. Why are you in it?" And he actually laughed in my face and said, "No, Mom, this is our house now. We closed on it last month. We bought it from your father." My ears rang. I pulled out my phone right there on the porch and scrolled through every email and text. No notice, no contract, no request for my signature on anything. All I saw were a couple of unread messages from my little sister gushing about how she could finally book her Dreamgirls trip and how our dad said she deserved it after such a stressful year. And that was the moment it clicked. That money was not coming from a secret bonus or lottery win. It was coming from the deed with my name on it. The house my grandmother left to me in a will that I had sat through at a lawyer's office. And now this stranger was standing in the doorway telling me he had proof he owned what she had promised I would never lose again. I did not say another word to him. I just walked down the steps, got back in my car, and drove straight to my parents' place with my hands so tight on the wheel they hurt. Because I already knew exactly who had signed my life away and exactly who they had done it for. And I was about to hear him say it out loud. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. When I burst through the front door of my parents' house, I did not even bother knocking. My mom yelled my name from the kitchen, but I was already in the living room staring at my little sister lounging on the couch in a brand new matching airport outfit, with 3 open suitcases on the floor and a stack of glossy travel brochures beside her. She barely glanced up from her phone and smirked. "Well, finally you made it. I was going to text you a selfie from the resort. You are going to be so jealous." Before I could answer, my dad, Robert, walked in from the hallway with that calm, I am in charge expression he always wears when he has already decided how a conversation will go. "What is with the drama? Emily," he said, "you have work tonight. Do not start something." I took a breath that did nothing to steady me and said, "Someone else is living in my house, the one Grandma Lily left me, and they said they bought it from you." His jaw tightened for a second. Then he shrugged like it was nothing. "Emily, you need to relax. You do not even live there. You have your own apartment downtown. You are doing fine. Your sister is just getting started. She needs help more than you do. You do not need the house. She needs a vacation." My sister Madison grinned and said, "Yeah, Em, chill. I am literally burned out. I deserve this. You have your little nurse life or whatever." I just stared at them, waiting for one of them to say it was a joke, that somewhere there had been a mistake at the title company, that nobody had touched the deed. Instead, my mom Diane came in, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and said, "Your father did what was best for the family. You know your grandmother was sentimental. She did not understand how much pressure your dad is under. We simply corrected it." "Corrected it," I repeated, my voice sounding weird to my own ears. "So you went behind my back and sold a house that was legally mine?" My dad rolled his eyes like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "It is not that simple," he said. "I signed your name on some of the paperwork because you were always at the hospital and impossible to get a hold of. And you know I handle the serious adult stuff anyway. It is called being practical. There was a pause where I swear all I could hear was the blood in my ears. You forged my signature, I said slowly. You committed fraud. And you spent the money on a trip and a car for Madison. My sister shifted, suddenly less smug but still defiant. She said, Grandma always babied you. Now it is my turn. And that hurt more than I expected. Because in that sentence she confirmed what I had always suspected, that my grandmother was the only person who had ever made me feel like more than an extra. I looked up at the wall where 10 framed photos hung in neat little rows, all recitals and cheerleading and beach trips, Madison smiling bigger in each one, and there was not a single photo of me past middle school. In my own parents' living room, my entire adult life had been erased. That was the moment something cold settled in my chest. I am not letting this go, I said quietly. My dad snorted. You are not dragging the family into court over a misunderstanding. This is a family matter. You will thank me someday when your sister is successful and can pay you back. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. That house was all I had left of Grandma, and you tossed it for airline points. Then I turned, walked out without waiting for them to answer, and by the time I sat in my car, my hands were already moving. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the only person I trusted with this. Jason, the guy who had grown up down the street and now worked as a real estate attorney in downtown Dallas. I typed, I need your help. It is about Grandma Lily's house. He called me within 60 seconds, his voice steady and clipped. Tell me everything, so I did, sitting there in my parents' driveway while my sister laughed with our mom through the closed door. By the time I finished, he sounded furious in a way I had never heard. Bring every document you have, the will, emails, texts, anything, he said. We are not letting this slide. And for the first time since I saw that stranger in my doorway, I felt something other than shock. I felt a direction. Jason met me the next morning in his office, a narrow space on the 12th floor that smelled like burnt coffee and copy paper. He had always been the laid-back kid in the neighborhood, the one who skateboarded past my grandmother's porch, but in a pressed shirt with a stack of files on his desk, he looked like a different person. I dropped a worn folder and a shoebox full of old cards and letters in front of him. This is everything from Grandma Lily, the will, her notes, even Christmas cards where she talked about the house. He slipped on his glasses and started sorting. The silence was heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, he held up the will. So this was probated 2 years ago when she passed, he asked. I nodded. They read it in a small conference room at a different firm. She left the house specifically to me, right? I remember signing for the keys. Jason pulled up the county records on his computer, clicked a few times, then turned the screen toward me. Here is the deed transfer from your grandmother to you. That looks fine. Then he clicked again. Here is the sale to the new buyers last month. My stomach flipped when I saw my own name typed under seller, followed by a shaky version of my signature, except it was not mine. The way the E curved was wrong. The last letters of Carter ran uphill instead of sloping down. This is not how I sign, I said. Jason was already nodding. Your dad could have fooled the buyers for a while, but he did not cover his tracks with the county. This is bad for him. He clicked into the scanned file, frowned, then cursed under his breath. What? I demanded. Look at this. He pointed to a printed email attached to the closing documents. It was from an address that looked like mine. Same handle, same provider. But the timestamp was from a week I had been pulling night shifts without a break. The text said, Emily Carter, authorize my father to sign on my behalf for the sale of my property because I am unable to attend closing in person. Except I had never written that. Ever. Jason said your dad or someone close to him created a fake email to pretend you gave permission, then forwarded it to the title company. That is a second layer of fraud, and then here? He zoomed in on the notary block. The same notary name kept popping up on other shady files he had seen around the courthouse. He sat back, his voice low but sure. "Emily, this is not a misunderstanding. This is deliberate. There is a forged signature, a forged email trail, and a notary with a reputation. If we push this, he is looking at criminal charges, not just civil liability." My throat felt tight, but not from tears, from rage. "What can we actually do?" I asked. "Step one is to give him one last chance to undo this quietly," Jason said. "I will send a formal demand to your dad and copy his work email. He has 24 hours to return the full $200,000 from the sale into an escrow account we control, and to sign over any remaining interest so we can unwind the sale. If he refuses, then we go nuclear. We file a civil suit for fraud and conversion. We notify the district attorney about the forged documents, and we go after every asset he has, his house, his accounts, anything." The words sounded surreal. This was my father we were talking about, the man who had taught me to ride a bike in the parking lot behind the grocery store, who had sat in the hallway outside my room brushing Maddie's hair while I did homework alone. But that last memory was exactly why I swallowed hard and nodded. "Do it." Jason drafted the letter while I sat there, his fingers flying over the keyboard. He read parts aloud. "Your unauthorized sale of my client's inherited property. Your use of fraudulent documentation. Fully repaying sale proceeds within 24 hours of receipt of this letter or face immediate legal action." At the bottom, he typed in all caps, 24 hours or court. When he was done, he looked at me. "Are you sure you are ready for this? Once I send it, there is no pretending it did not happen." I thought of the empty spot where my grandmother's recliner used to sit, now occupied by a stranger couch. I thought of my sister's suitcases lined up for a vacation paid for with my loss. "Send it," I said. He hit print, signed, scanned, and emailed the demand, then sent a courier with a hard copy to my dad's office. By lunch, my phone started buzzing. My dad called first, then my mom, then my sister. And when I did not pick up, my dad tried again. Finally, I answered, putting the phone on speaker and setting it on my kitchen counter so I would not have to feel its weight in my hand. "Emily." His voice came through tight and sharper than usual. "What the hell is this letter? Are you trying to ruin me?" I let the silence stretch until he filled it. "You cannot be serious about taking your own father to court over a house you never even lived in as an adult. Do you have any idea what this will do to my job? To your mother? To your sister? I said you already did that when you sold it. And you know exactly what I am talking about because you forged my signature and sent fake emails from an account pretending to be me." He scoffed loudly. "That lawyer of yours is filling your head with nonsense. We did not forge anything. We just signed some papers. It is not like we stole from a stranger. Families help each other. That is what this is. Family. If you do not withdraw this ridiculous demand right now, you will destroy your own blood." The word destroy echoed. "You destroyed the only thing Grandma Lily left me," I answered. "And you did it so Madison could sit by a pool and post pictures. You did not even call me. You did not ask. You decided my inheritance was optional." There was a pause. Then he lowered his voice like he was finally letting the truth slip. "Your sister has potential, Emily. She is building something with her followers. This trip could change her life. You are just a nurse. You will always have work. You have an apartment, a career. You are stable. You do not need a house sitting empty." I almost laughed then, but it came out more like a breath. "Do you even hear yourself? You committed crimes so she could take selfies in another time zone?" He snapped. "Anyone listening will understand. We were trying to keep the money in the family. That is not fraud. That is parenting. Besides, you cannot prove I forged anything." My heartbeat picked up at that, because I had never used the word forged with him before the letter. I had told him at his house that he sold my place, Not that I had hard evidence. Yet here he was defending himself against a charge he had not heard from me. Jason had said it would happen, that guilty people out themselves when they panic. I said calmly. I never told you what Jason found in the county records. I never mentioned the fake email address or the notary. So how exactly do you know what you cannot be proven to have forged? There was a long, thick silence. Then he switched tactics so fast it gave me whiplash. Fine, he said, his tone softening. Maybe I went about it the wrong way, but I was going to make it right. I was planning to give you some of the money once things calm down. I will transfer a portion today. We can call it even. We can avoid embarrassing the family in court. I actually did laugh this time. A short, bitter sound. You do not get to negotiate with what you stole, Dad. This is not a discount store, I said. He raised his voice. Stop saying stole. You are making this uglier than it needs to be. I will talk to Madison. We will work something out. We will offer you something fair. The way he said we made my skin crawl, because it meant my sister was not just a clueless passenger on this trip. He would not be promising negotiations with her money if she had no idea where it had come from. Did she know about the forgery? Was she in the room when he decided to sign my name? I asked quietly, How long has Madison known about what you did? That question seemed to land somewhere he did not expect. He hesitated a beat too long, then said, Do not drag your sister into this. She just did what any daughter would do when her father offers to help her. You are the one making it a legal mess. That was answer enough, you realize? I asked. That calling something family does not magically turn theft into generosity. That is not how this works. There was a crackle on the line. Then he said, I am your father. I raised you. You owe me some loyalty. Are you really going to send me to prison over a misunderstanding? If blood can be used to demand silence when we are being robbed by our own people, what is the point of calling it family at all? I asked, my voice shaking now, not from fear but from fury. He did not respond. The quiet felt heavier than any shouting. Then he said in a flat tone, You will regret this, Emily, and hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, then picked it up and scrolled to Madison. She had sent me 3 angry texts while my dad was talking. You are so dramatic. You are selfish. You are ruining everything. The last one said, Thanks to you, I might lose my trip. Hope you are happy. I tapped her name and hit call. It went straight to voicemail. Fine, I thought. We will talk in person. And this time I would not go in alone. That night, I drove back to my parents' house with my phone already recording in my pocket, screen dark, mic on. I had seen enough hospital drama to know memory gets messy when emotions run high, but audio does not. The lights were on, shadows moved past the curtains, and my stomach twisted as I knocked. My mom opened the door, eyes red and jaw set. You are tearing this family apart, she said. Stop this nonsense before it goes too far. I stepped past her into the living room. Madison was curled up on the couch, laptop open to resort photos, an empty suitcase half full of swimsuits on the floor. She looked up, lips tightening. What now? Can you not just let me enjoy something for once? My voice came out steadier than I felt. How long have you known Dad forged my name to sell Grandma Lily's house? Her fingers froze over the keyboard. For a second she played confused. What are you even talking about? That is a serious accusation. I stepped closer. Do not insult me. I know what is in the county file. I know about the fake email and the notary stamp. I just want to hear how much you knew and for how long. My mom tried to cut in, but I held up a hand. Answer me, Madison. She exhaled hard and leaned back. Fine. Dad told me he could handle the paperwork, that he could sign for you because you are always at that stupid hospital and never answer your phone. He said you were not moving back into that creepy old place anyway, and that it made no sense for him to struggle while a valuable property sat empty. So yeah, I knew he was going to sell it. My throat tightened. And you knew he was pretending to be me? She shrugged. He said he had your permission. He said it was for the family. I did not ask questions. He is our dad. I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because her cruelty was so casual. He literally told you he was taking something left to me, without asking me, so you could go to Cancun, and you did not think that was wrong? Madison stood up, cheeks flushing. You are so dramatic. It is a house, Emily. Wood and drywall and old lady furniture. Grandma treated you like you were the second coming. You got her love, her time, everything. Now for once, something is about me, and you cannot stand it. This is your chance to be a decent sister, and instead, you hire a lawyer. My mom nodded along. You always were ungrateful. You never appreciated what your father did for this family. I looked straight at Madison. You booked the trip knowing the money came from a sale I never agreed to. She lifted her chin. Yeah, I booked it. So what? I have worked hard on my content. This trip is an investment. Everyone does what they have to do to get ahead. Some of us are not content clocking in for 12-hour shifts and coming home smelling like disinfectant. Something in me went still. That trip is never happening now, I said, and the car you have been bragging about will not either, because the money is going back where it belongs. Her eyes flashed. You cannot make him go to prison. He did this for me. If you really cared about me, you would not take it this far. There it was, the belief beneath everything, that loving them meant letting them hurt me without consequence. I took a breath. No one forced him to fabricate my consent. No one forced you to say yes to stolen money. You both made choices. Now you live with them. She stepped close enough that we were almost nose to nose. If you go through with this, you are dead to me. I do not have a sister. I looked at her perfect face, the same one filling every frame on our living room wall while mine was missing, and said, "That is finally something we agree on." Then I turned, walked past my mother shaking her head like I had broken some sacred rule, and stepped into the night. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. In the car, I stopped the recording, saved it to the cloud, and texted Jason. I have proof Madison knew about the fraud. I want every legal consequence on the table. He answered almost immediately. Come in first thing in the morning. We will add the recording to the file and move forward. As I drove away from the house I grew up in, one thought kept looping in my mind. They thought I would choose them over myself forever. They thought wrong. After Jason filed the lawsuit and sent the recording to the district attorney's office, things moved faster than I expected. My dad was served at work, in front of his colleagues at the insurance office where he had spent years building a reputation as the guy who could smooth over any problem. My mom called me that night screaming that the sheriff had humiliated him in the lobby, that everyone was staring, that I had destroyed his life. I listened quietly and then said, he destroyed his own life when he forged my name, and hung up. Within a week, the story had trickled through our extended family and church friends, fueled by my mother's version of events where I was a cold-hearted daughter suing her own father because I was greedy. But court records are public, and Jason knew how to get ahead of a narrative. He made sure the facts were clear in every filing. The will showing the house was mine, the forged deed, the fake email authorizing the sale, the bank records that traced the $200,000 from closing straight into my parents' joint account. Then out again, to pay for a luxury resort package in Mexico under my sister's name, and a cashier check sent to a dealership as a deposit for a new compact car. The civil case went hand in hand with the criminal investigation. The district attorney took one look at the stack of evidence and decided it was worth prosecuting. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, use of a false instrument. Words I had only heard on television now applied to my own family. When the first hearing date came, Jason asked if I wanted to testify. You do not have to, he said. The paper trail speaks for itself, but sometimes it helps to hear the human side. I thought of getting on that stand and answering questions about childhood neglect and favoritism, while my parents glared at me from across the room. I thought of Madison rolling her eyes, and I shook my head. Use the documents? Use the recording? Use Grandma's words, I said. But I am done performing for them. The day of the first big hearing. I sat in the back of the courtroom, quiet. Jason up front with his neatly organized binder. My dad at the defense table in a suit that suddenly seemed too large. My mom behind him clutching a tissue. Madison nowhere in sight. Whether because she was hiding or because their lawyer had told her to stay away, I did not know. The judge, a woman with deep lines around her mouth and tired eyes, listened as Jason laid out the timeline. He played a short clip from my recording. Madison saying, "It is a house, Emily, wood and drywall, and old lady furniture. Grandma treated you like you were the second coming. Now for once something is about me, and you cannot stand it." The judge raised an eyebrow at that. Then he introduced the letter from my grandmother, a note she had written to her attorney when she updated her will, explaining why she was leaving the house to me specifically. Jason read it aloud. She wrote that the house had been a refuge for me when my parents were too busy or too harsh, that she wanted me always to have a safe place that could not be taken from me by anyone, that under no circumstances did she want the property sold to benefit anyone else, especially not to cover debts or fund luxuries. My dad's attorney tried to object, saying the letter was just sentiment, not law, but the judge allowed it as insight into intent. When Jason finished reading, the room was very quiet. Then the judge looked at my dad and asked directly, "Did you understand that this property belonged solely to your daughter?" He shifted in his chair. "Yes," he said finally. "And did you sign her name on closing documents without her being present, knowing she had not explicitly authorized you to?" He stared at the table. "Yes. And did you use the proceeds for your own expenses and to pay for a vacation and vehicle for your younger daughter?" "Yes," he whispered. His lawyer winced. The judge sighed. "I do not know what you thought would happen," she said. "But this is exactly the kind of betrayal these laws exist to address. People think that calling it family business shields them from consequences. It does not. By the time we reached the end of the proceedings, my dad had accepted a plea deal on the criminal charges in exchange for sparing my mom and Madison from being named as co-defendants. He pled guilty to felony fraud and forgery, agreed to full restitution, and accepted a sentence of 8 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 4. The judge also issued a no-contact order protecting me from any harassment while the sentence was ongoing. In the civil case, the court entered a judgment that did not just require him to pay back the $200,000 from the sale, but also awarded punitive damages for the emotional harm and the blatant disrespect of my grandmother's wishes, my parents' primary home, the one I had just walked out of a few weeks before, was put under a lien and eventually ordered sold to satisfy part of the judgment. My mom lost her job at the dentist's office where she had worked for years. Once the story hit the local news, the owner told her clients were uncomfortable trusting their information to someone connected to an identity theft case. My Aunt Michelle, who had always been the quiet one at family dinners, let my mom and Madison move into her spare room for a while, but she made it clear she would not be taking their side. "I am helping because I loved Lily and I cannot stand the idea of you on the street," she told my mom, according to one of my cousins. "But what you did to Emily was unforgivable." My mom lasted 3 months there before a shouting match about me ended with Michelle telling them to leave. They ended up in a small 2-bedroom apartment near the freeway, my mom cleaning office buildings at night, Madison working a retail job she complained about constantly on her social media, where her follower count had started to drop after people dug up court records and realized the truth behind her canceled beach trip. As for me, Once the restitution money cleared and the sale was officially unwound, I used it along with some of my savings to buy back Grandma's house from the people my dad had illegally sold it to. They were relieved to get out of the situation with all their money back and a little extra from the judgment fund to cover their trouble. The day I got the keys again, I drove over alone. No boxes, no friends, just me. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and stood in the silent living room where the outline of her old recliner was still faintly visible on the hardwood. The place smelled faintly of fresh paint from the short time the other family had been there, but under it I could almost imagine the faint scent of her perfume. I did not smile. I did not cry. I just rested my hand on the doorframe and breathed. I had taken back what was mine, but the cost of that victory was a crater where my family used to be. A year passed, and life rearranged itself around the new shape of things. I settled into a rhythm that revolved around long nights at the hospital and quiet mornings on Grandma's old front porch, with coffee and the stray cat that had decided I belonged to him now. I repainted walls, replaced old wiring, fixed leaky pipes, and in the process learned how it felt to care for a house the way my grandmother had cared for me, not as an object but as a promise. My dad was serving his sentence. My mom and Madison were still sharing that cramped apartment on the other side of town. From what little I heard through relatives, my mom blamed me loudly and often, told anyone who would listen that I had overreacted, that my dad had made one mistake, and I had thrown him to the wolves. Yet the same relatives would call me in private to tell me they understood, that if someone had sold the only thing their late mother left them, they would have lost their minds too. Grandma Lily had been beloved in our family, and the more people thought about what had happened, the more they saw my parents' actions not just as an attack on me, but as a spit in her face. I had made my peace with the idea that I might never see any of them again when my phone rang one afternoon and an unfamiliar number from the prison system flashed on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. Curiosity got the better of me. I answered. A recorded voice said I had a collect call from an inmate. Then my dad's name. I pressed the number to accept. There was a crackle. Then his voice came through, smaller than I remembered. "M," he said, his tone stripped of the arrogance that had always been there. "Thank you for picking up." I sat down at the kitchen table, fingers wrapped around my mug. "What do you want?" I asked. He took a long breath. "I wanted to say I am sorry," he said. "Not the fake kind I tried before. I mean it. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, and all I have been thinking about is how I did this to myself. I kept chasing this idea that if I just pushed enough resources toward Madison, she would finally become this shining success that would justify every sacrifice. And in the process, I sacrificed you without even blinking. I told myself you were strong, you were fine, you did not need as much, that you owed me your silence because I had kept a roof over your head when you were a kid. I thought I was being a good father, and instead I was being a coward, because it was easier to take from the daughter who would not scream than to tell the other one no. I did not speak. I just listened as he continued. "The worst part," he said, voice cracking, "is that in trying to save Madison from any discomfort, I ruined her life as well. She visits sometimes, and I see the resentment in her eyes. She blames you on the surface, but underneath she is furious at me because deep down she knows I am the one who handed her stolen gifts. I thought I was protecting my favorite child, and in the end I lost you both. Can you forgive me, Emily?" His question hung there between us, and for a moment I hated that he had asked, because forgiveness felt like letting him off the hook, like saying it was all right, when it had never been all right. But as I sat there, I realized the anger I had carried for the last year had become something heavy and stale, something that sat in my chest like a rock. Whether I forgave him or not, he would still serve his sentence. My house was still mine again. My relationship with my mom and Madison was still shattered. The past was not going to rewrite itself because of a word. Forgiveness, in this context, was not about him walking free or us going back to Sunday dinners. It was about setting down a weight I was tired of hauling. I finally said, "I believe you are sorry, and I do forgive you in the sense that I am not going to spend the rest of my life hating you. But that does not mean we can pretend this never happened. It does not mean I want you back in my day-to-day life when you get out." There was a small sound on his end that might have been a muffled sob. "I understand," he said. "I do not deserve more than that. Thank you for giving me even this." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, feeling oddly lighter and sadder at the same time, like I had closed a door from the inside instead of having it slammed in my face. My mom never called. Neither did Madison. We existed in the same city like strangers, and I made my peace with that. Some relationships are too warped to fix without breaking yourself in the process. I had chosen not to bend myself into that shape anymore. What I did choose was to honor the person who had loved me right. I kept Grandma's garden tidy. I hosted holidays for friends and coworkers who had nowhere else to go. I turned the house she left me into the safe place she had imagined, not just for me, but for others who needed it. And when I lay in bed at night, listening to the quiet creaks of an old house settling around me, I knew I had done the hardest thing a person can do. I had stood up to the people who raised me and drawn a line they were not allowed to cross, all for the sake of a promise made by a tiny woman with a big heart and a stubborn streak. If it were you, and your own family sold the one thing left to you by the person who truly loved you, would you choose to forgive them enough to breathe easier? Or would you rather watch them pay for it for the rest of their lives?